Friday morning, and we are not the home of hot takes. I mean, if we took nothing else from last week's show, that really should be the lesson. These takes that we're about to bring your way, colder than Gareth Bale's arse on a cold, wet night in London. It's time for this week's Cold Cuts.
I am flabbergasted. Maguire. And De Gea. Shocking. I am disgusted. Maguire. And De Gea. Get close to people. Move your feet. Move your feet. Maguire. And De Gea. I am flabbergasted. I'm not too happy with all that, no. Maguire. I would be swinging punches at that guy. De Gea. Swinging punches, swinging punches, swinging punches, swinging punches. Maguire. And De Gea. I'm fuming here watching this game of football.
The biggest concern for you, dear viewer, is that this item now has a sting, and that means it is here to stay. These are the things that have caught our attention during the week. They're definitely not hot takes. Sometimes they're not even cold takes. They're just stuff that titillated us from the internet and beyond over the course of the last 7 days. So we're going to go straight in with number 3 this week, which is with the Super Bowl obviously in sight. We went stateside to kick off the week with a snippet of the new Detroit Lions coach, Dan Campbell. I think Thomas Tuchel meets a cross between Francie Bellew and Vinnie Jones. Take a listen.
This team is going to take on the identity of this city, all right? And this city's been down, and it found a way to get up, all right? It's found a way to overcome adversity, all right? And so this team's going to be built on, we're going to kick you in the teeth, all right? And when you punch us back, we're going to smile at you. And when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off, all right? And we're going to stand up, and then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down. All right, and on the way up, we're going to take your other kneecap, and we're going to get up, and then it's going to take 3 shots to get us down. And when we do, we're going to take another hunk out of you. Before long, we're going to be the last one standing. All right, that's going to be the mentality.
Just after that, Dan walked around the back of that backdrop and punched himself in the kneecap. He was so annoyed with having him let himself go.
Yeah. Encouraging cannibalism is the level we've got in US coaching. Sign Army Hammer up to be a running back for the Detroit Lions is my first piece of advice for him.
In at number 2, you've guessed it, Richard Keys. He was number 1 last week, and alongside his trusty sidekick Andy Gray, they've been not so privately advising Pep Guardiola. Keys and Gray, they make the cut again this week. In fact, we heard Cold Cuts predict that, like Tupac and Biggie, they're going to still be in the charts long after they're gone. Take a listen.
I don't know why Pep can't get his head around. Maybe he's just a coach who loves to coach positive football. Maybe he has another coach who does the back 4. Well, his coach must be
he's got 60 people around him.
Well, there you go. So I would be surprised if
you'd have thought
works
somebody would...
an awful lot with the back 4 defensively. I would be surprised. I don't know.
Somebody might tell me. He could go and watch Roy Hodgson work, or he could bring Sam Allardyce in on a temporary basis. I mean, any of these guys have shaped teams defensively, haven't they?
It's the casual nature of it all. It's just dropped in so casually, you blink, you might miss it.
This is a cold take that has been brought out of cold storage this week, said last October on BN Sports, and naturally you get smashed by the team you're supposed to be helping as a defensive coach, and it resurfaced. So thank you to literally everybody on Twitter for bringing that to our attention this week.
In at number 1, it's a joint award this week, and it goes to Frank Lampard and Thomas Tuchel, the 2 men who were dragged on into a proverbial hypothetical philosophical schoolyard dust-up by the baying mob, which shouts of, no, my dad is stronger than your dad, and yeah, well, my dad can speak German and he'll get much more out of Werner and Hertz and Havertz than your dad. But speaking of family ties, Frank's uncle Harry was the first man up.
You're only as good as your players at the end of the day, and the players that have brought in, the 2 German players, have been massive disappointments.
Yeah.
Massive. I mean, you look at them, I'm not even sure, especially the centre forward, whether he's cut out for English football. It looks to me like the physical side of it's too much for him. I don't know. Who's brought them in? As if they've suddenly, we've spent 200 million. They are Frank. There you are. Get on with it. You know, that is football management now, I'm afraid. They're given... The players are given to you. If he was worried about his lack of experience, maybe they should have brought somebody in and said to Frank, look, Frank, I think you need to get somebody in with a bit more experience around you, somebody you can talk to.
Yeah, if only Frank Owen had somebody at hand who was a semi-retired, hugely experienced, charismatic, not wheeler-dealer relative who could have been part of a world-class management team.
A king of the jungle in your family, and you neglect to use him. Disgraceful betrayal from Frank Lampard is all I'm saying.
Next up in this schoolyard dust-up was a man who played 58 times for England, one of the most respected England players of his generation, and he also coached with England for a while. Yes, it's Darren Gough, and the cricket ace isn't convinced by football's hot thing.
I'm not 100% convinced. I think it's very difficult. He's obviously can manage. I'm not saying he's a poor manager whatsoever. You all have to look at what he did with Dortmund. He's gone to Paris, a big club. He deserved that opportunity where he won a couple of league titles. But this is a different league.
Different league. Not even on Fleet Street was having the Germans' appointment this week. Not sure what was more impressive here, the Tuchel ticking clock or Ger's Henry Winter impression.
When the ball flew out of play near Thomas Tuchel midway through the first half, Chelsea's latest head coach quickly seized a spare, throwing it to Ben Chilwell, trying to quicken the pace, maybe fearing that the clock is already ticking at Stamford Bridge. It usually is.
If you were listening to OTB AM yesterday on a speaker on some recess of your living room or whatever, and you walked into the room, you would have stopped dead in your tracks and be like, is that Henry Winter on my radio? It was just such an absolute dead-on impression. Incredible work, really. Mario Rosenstock, watch out, is the first thing that came to my mind.
And finally, one that we really couldn't leave out. This didn't make the top three, but we couldn't leave it out. It's not strictly sport, but we had to mention it. No script embellishment needed with this one whatsoever. Mark McSharry TD, who was so gung-ho for the vaccine this week, he suggested at the Fianna Fáil Parliamentary Party that if the Ku Klux Klan is selling a vaccine, we should buy it. Now, listen, there's been a somewhat justified, you would say, pile-on poor Mark, and he's been out to explain himself. His apology went something along the lines of this: as someone who conversationally uses extreme analogies at times, those who know me know precisely where I'm coming from. Whatever could he mean?
I haven't seen you on the record for the previous decade when this was an issue. I haven't seen you address this point, and whether or not the current people were involved, they come from the same processes that elected the board for the last decade and a half that allowed the previous existence, the previous administration, to walk the organisation into the debt it has at the moment.
Well, to carry that analogy through, it's like saying that the people that elected the government that made mistakes shouldn't be allowed to vote again. That just doesn't stand up, Chair.
My point here is that
I would echo Ger's long, awkward pause, silence, and weird look. He's not good at analogies, it turns out.
No, he certainly isn't. We just want to bring one last thing to your attention this week. People who were watching us on Periscope or on Facebook last week will have noticed that Adrian Barry woke up on Friday morning and decided, you know what, my voice isn't deep enough. And like a prepubescent boy, decided, I'm going to drop my voice down a few octaves lower. This is the result.
Friday morning, welcome along to OTB AM. It's gone 7:30 and it's freezing cold on this January morning. But Owen Shane, good morning to you. I'm delighted to say we've a title race to warm the cockles of our hearts.
You certainly do. It's going to be a very interesting few months.
Yeah, that could look like an incredible cold take on in about sort of 4 or 6 weeks. We'll see what happens. I was amused with Graham Souness last night in commentary talking about Divock Origi's chance.
Yeah. I mean, your professionalism, Owen, knows no bounds. I had no idea what was going on there. You did, but you carried on regardless.
I, for one, welcome our new Megazord Overlord, who sounds like a villain in Power Rangers. It suits you.
That is your Friday's Cold Cuts.
Maguire. And they're here. Shocking. I'm disgusted. Maguire. And they're here. Get close to people. Move your feet. Move your feet. Maguire. And they're here. I am flabbergasted. I'm not too happy with all that. No. Maguire. I would be swinging punches at that guy. They're here. Swinging punches, swinging punches, swinging punches, swinging punches. Maguire. And they're here. I'm fuming here watching this game of football.
The difficulty for that slot is always going to be that it's going to be outshone by that brilliant sting, the work of Joseph Conroy. But that is this week's Cold Cuts.